Hey everybody, Some Gadget Guy here, and the Galaxy Note 4 is now in our studio. I've been using it for the last couple weeks, and I'm finally able to report on what my experiences have been using Samsung's newest phablet flagship. Now, the Note has always been known for being a larger phone, and I love listening to reviews talk about, oh, it's just so big these days, because recently, a number of phones have come out that even eclipse the size of the Galaxy Note. It is no longer the biggest kid on the block. Jumping into some size comparisons, here is the Note 4 opposite the 5-inch screen found on the Lumia 930/Icon, stepping up to the 5.1-inch screen on the Galaxy S5, the Note 4's little brother here. One of Samsung's closest competitors now, here is the Note 4 next to the LG G3. And here's the Note 4 next to one of my favorite phablets, the LG G Flex. Once we start landing this 6-inch screen, the Note 4 doesn't seem quite as big as it used to. And of course, no smartphone size comparison would be complete without the Lumia 1520, the monster mini tablet from Nokia Microsoft. It's just funny how times change. The Note is definitely a big phone with its 5.7-inch display, but it no longer feels like the humongous slab of device that it used to. Walking around the hardware on the phone, of course, the first thing you're going to notice about any phone is the screen. And Samsung has delivered a gorgeous 5.7-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 2560 by 1440. While I'm still not completely sold on the jump from 1080p to QHD being any kind of substantial upgrade, I am definitely still a sucker for an AMOLED display, especially the contrast and color saturation, where blacks are nearly indistinguishable from the edges of the screen off the bezels. Also on the front face, we've got the fingerprint scanner. It's supposedly improved from the scanner on the Galaxy S5, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the review. We have a decently loud earpiece at the top of the phone, and in the top right corner, we've got the monster front-facing camera. It's only a 3.7 megapixel shooter, but it's capable of QHD video recording. Again, 2560 by 1440 off of the front-facing camera. Plus, just look at how much larger that lens and sensor is on the front-facing camera on the Note 4, especially when compared to the tiny little shooter on the Galaxy S5. I know a lot of companies are out there claiming they've got the next selfie camera, but the Note 4's performance has been formidable, and we've already shot a vlog using the front-facing camera on the Note 4 at QHD resolution, so you can definitely check that out on this channel. The front-facing camera on the Galaxy Note 4 is capable of a higher resolution video than the iPhone 6's rear-facing camera, and that's insane. On the bottom is where we'll find access to the stylus, one of the crown jewel features for the Galaxy Note 4. We also have a micro USB 2 port. Again, kind of interesting that Samsung seems to have walked away from utilizing micro USB 3 ports. It's a little hard to see with the gray finish, but there are a pair of microphones on the bottom of the phone. Moving to the top of the phone, we have an additional microphone right there, right next to the headphone jack. And of course, the IR blaster, one of my favorite Android features for using your phone as a universal remote. The sides of the phone are kept pretty clean. The right side of the phone has the power button, and the left side of the phone has the one-piece volume rocker with the nice little chiseled edges that we saw from the Galaxy Alpha. The rear of the phone, we're going to find the incredible 16 megapixel image sensor with optical image stabilization. Now, during my camera review, I said that this was an ISOCELL sensor. I still have not gotten confirmation from Samsung directly, but it does seem that Samsung is using the Sony sensor for the Note 4 to incorporate that optical image stabilization. Regardless, it's still a larger image sensor and one of the best cameras I've used in the Android ecosystem. We'll of course talk about that a little bit later in the review. And of course, a hallmark of recent Samsung phones, underneath the camera, we've got the LED flash right next to the heart rate monitor for S Health. Samsung continues to point their speakers in the wrong direction. I would love to see Samsung's take on a front-facing speaker, but at least for putting the speaker in the wrong direction, they have fitted the Galaxy Note 4 with one of the loudest speakers we've ever run through our audio test. Of course, you can also take a listen to speaker performances. We've already published that video as well. Continuing in the tradition of the Galaxy Alpha, we now have a metal band running along the sides of the phone. These nice little dimpled corners that come from the Galaxy S5 Active, and then the entire metal edge has a nice beveled ring which runs along the sides. It feels really comfy in the hand, even when you're sort of digging the corners of the phone into the pad of your hand. It does feel a little sharper than some of our all-metal phones like the HTC One or the iPhone 6, but Samsung has radically improved on the metal band design over phones like the Lumia 930. Now, I'm not sure, however, how well the edges are going to age over time. If you notice on the bevels, we've got sort of a silver metallic trim, and then we've got this gray surface here on the sides. I'm assuming this is going to get scratched up as you use it. Maybe it ends up with a pocket with keys, and those keys are gonna rub off this gray surface material. And even though I know in my brain that all of the dimensions on the Note 4 are very similar to the iPhone 6 Plus, this still doesn't quite feel as big as the 6 Plus. Or maybe it's just that the screen's a little bit larger, so it doesn't feel like there's as much wasted space on the Note 4 as there is on the iPhone 6 Plus. These little cutouts where we probably have antennas running through, just really clean, attractive design. And just as we saw in the Alpha, I love that the metal trim surrounds the headphone jack. It's incorporated into the metal band of the design. But there does seem to be a little bit more of an edge or trench running along the screen with this metal edge than what I found on the Galaxy Alpha. Still, it's impressive design how well they've managed to fit all of these pieces together. Now, I didn't have any issues with the backplate on the Galaxy Note 3, but especially compared to the more Band-Aid-like experience found on the Galaxy S5, the Galaxy Note 4 is continuing just those subtle little refinements in terms of their design, but it's still very much the same soft, fake leather, grippy, rubbery texture on the back of the phone. I think for the Note 4, they've just gotten rid of those little seams that we had on the Note 3 that made it look like fake stitching. The metal edges make for a luxury, premium feeling smartphone. And I really do like these flat surfaces when I'm using the camera. It gives you more of an edge to hold on to. But unlike all metal phones, this plastic back surface is easier to hold on to if you've got sweaty hands like I do. And I've personally found that the HTC One and the iPhone 6, especially with their rounded corners and all metal surface, are a little harder to hold on to. One of the things that always cracks me up about Samsung reviews are when people complain about the back plate feeling flimsy. When this is connected and is a part of the device, this is a really solid feeling phone. It's built tremendously well, all of these pieces fit together really well, and there's almost no flex. But I think it's hysterical when someone peels off this back plate and is like, oh, but look, when you take it off of the phone, oh no, look and see how flexible it is? See, this doesn't feel very good because it's like really low quality plastic and you can like bend it, so that means that it's not very good. I don't know, maybe I'm missing out on something. Are a bunch of you using the back plates of your phone for things other than covering the back of your phone? Like, are you trying to use this to jimmy open door locks or something? I don't get what people are expecting when they peel a backplate off of their phone. Checking out the guts of the phone, we have the 3200 milliamp hour battery here. It's shocking how small we can make a high capacity battery these days. I am kind of surprised to see that we're still rocking a micro SIM, not a nano SIM on the Galaxy Note 4. The gorgeous 16 megapixel shooter. We have already produced camera reviews, and it's a joy to shoot with this camera. This is one of the most fun cameras I've used in quite a while, especially one that wasn't bolted onto the back of a Nokia phone. And while the Note comes with 32 gigabytes of storage built in, there is a micro SD card slot capable of supporting up to a 128 gigabyte micro SD card. And though we've got this tiny little cutout for where the speaker vents on the back plate, this is actually the speaker assembly on the rear of the phone, and it's honking loud. Now, this has been one of the snappiest Samsungs I think I've ever used. The Qualcomm 805 is being put to great use in the Galaxy Note 4. And while the combination of a super high resolution display and TouchWiz definitely takes a bite out of that more powerful processor, in general, I'm still finding Note 4 performance to be a touch quicker or a touch snappier than the LG G3. And that extra horsepower is appreciated, as I find I really do need to use the power saving feature on the Galaxy Note 4. I have it turned off for this review just so you can see it cranking at full speed, but in my day-to-day usage, the insanely powerful guts of this phone, the super large, bright display, and the high resolution all make mincemeat of that big battery. But throttling back on that CPU performance, and I find that I can get about a day and a half of regular to moderately high usage. Out of the box, it's a bright, punchy, candy-colored affair, and it does a pretty decent job of holding your hand, especially for people that are maybe breaking into their first no-compromises power user device. While I can't say I'm always the biggest fan, it does come with a couple features that I really do enjoy, not the least of which is the ability to now float multiple apps on your screen all at the same time. So all of these can multitask in real time. They've all got proper support. So if we tap on one, like if we tap on my Astro File Manager, it comes up in this floating window that you can move around the screen anywhere you want. You can make it a little bit bigger, and it functions the same way that the app would if it were in full screen mode. And one of the things that I really do like about Samsung's implementation of this floating window concept, as opposed to LG's Q-Slide apps, is whenever I hit the home key with one of these in place, I get this little floating icon that nicely minimizes and hides the app, but I can quickly tap on that to get back into where I was. Of course, with that amazing feature, I also have to give Samsung a knock in that the Note 4 still continues to force us into a 4x4 grid on the home screen. We have all of this room, we have all of this space, and we have all of these dots on the screen, and I still have to make a Sophie's choice. It's an even bigger mess when you start getting into some of our favorite widgets. And I really wish that Samsung would start opening up on the Note line, maybe not necessarily on the Galaxy S5 or on the Galaxy Alpha, but at least on the Note to give us maybe a 5x5 grid. And Samsung also has a whole suite of apps that they'll include on the phone to take advantage of the various hardware features. For example, S Health is going to be your fitness and health tracker and ties into the heart rate monitor on the back of the phone. I've never used S Voice. I really wish Samsung would stop competing with Google Now on their Android devices, as I find Google Now just better integrates with the rest of the Android experience. And while I'm always really excited to see the IR blaster on the top of a phone, I have to say that the smart remote that Samsung packages with their phones is one of my least favorite remote apps. I'm really just not a big fan of Peel and the way that they try and introduce you to content that you might find interesting, and then tapping into the actual remote software itself. So as you try and go through to add devices to this universal remote, I just find that this is not very well laid out or very well organized, and the process of tapping through to find codes that work seems a bit slapdash, and it's a little confusing. I really wish Peel would give us just a one universal remote layout, as tapping through various tabs and sliding panels back and forth just isn't a very easy way to navigate a home theater system. Using this app for a little while, I'm far more likely to pick up my physical universal remote or the HTC One, which I think has a much better universal remote app for its IR blaster. Other little quirks, I can't say I've ever been a big fan of the Samsung keyboard with its tiny little number row of tic-tac keys, so now I'm using the Google keyboard. It's the Google keyboard, which is actually closest in function to what I like about the Windows Phone keyboard, which is why I keep coming back to this setup for all of my Android phone reviews. And we're gonna get really nitpicky here, but I do not like the voice that comes on Samsung phones. If we take a listen to the voice that Samsung bundles with their text-to-speech engine,
this is an example of speech synthesis in English.
And then we compare that to what Google uses in their text-to-speech engine,
this is an example of speech synthesis in English.
It's just no contest. Google's speech engine is phenomenal. As you're getting turn-by-turn directions from the Samsung voice, it's just a slightly huskier voice. In my opinion, the Google voice does seem to do a slightly better job of cutting through noise as I'm trying to navigate busy streets. Honestly, one of my biggest gripes with Samsung phones is how they prevent you from disabling their built-in features. I really do prefer using the Google Calendar app over the Samsung Calendar app. And even though I've disabled the Samsung Calendar app, whenever I get a new calendar alert, if I tap on it to add it to my calendar, the Samsung Calendar pops back up. I have not found a way to fully disable the Samsung Calendar. And if anyone has found a way, please drop me a comment on this video. While I've been using TouchWiz for my review, as I start pushing into more long-term usage for the Galaxy Note 4, I'm probably going to switch over into Nova Launcher just so I can customize more of the grid layout, and I think it'll also be a slightly snappier performer than what Samsung is doing with their TouchWiz launcher. At the bottom, Samsung says they have refined the fingerprint sensor on the Galaxy Note over what we got on the Galaxy S5. But my main problem with this fingerprint scanner remains in that you have to swipe through this fingerprint scanner. As this is positioned on the bottom edge of a very large phone, it's a delicate dance of sliding a thumb through the sensor if you try and use the phone one-handed. And already so much of this phone demands two-handed usage that there are occasionally times you don't want to have to dedicate both hands just to unlocking the device. And after about 2 days of trying to use the fingerprint scanner, I found myself just going back to a pattern unlock. And we're also seeing some cool updates to the S Pen and its functionality there. If we click the button near the screen, we're gonna get the new Air Command menu, quick menu layout. Now, instead of just delivering us immediately into a screenshot, we can screen write, which if we tap on this, it's going to take a screenshot and then allow us to doodle on that screenshot before saving it and sending it off. We also have an image clip, which gives us a freeform tool to select something to cut out. So now I can save this, share this, continue editing it, and it's a handy little tool just to cut out a piece of something if I want to share it with someone. We have a smart selection tool, which also now gives us a more rectangular selection process. And like our multitasking window, can collect these little snippets in floating windows on our home screen. And of course, this would not be a note if we didn't have fast access to a memo tool. And tapping on Action Memo pulls up a post-it note style interface for us to doodle down notes, to jot, and it also does a reasonably job of handwriting recognition. I'm not going to run through showing you how awful my handwriting is, because it's not fair to the note in how poorly it does translating my handwriting. Now, gaming performance has been snappy and quick. There aren't any real games out that I know of. Someone drop me some comments down below if you found one that actually do take advantage of a 2560 by 1440 display. I've been looking for them since we started playing with the LG G3. Even the fact that this is upscaling content, you still get a wonderful gaming experience with all of those fun little particle and lighting effects that we're starting to now see. Sorry, I'm trying to actually play this game, and it's really hard to play this game while also staring at a camera screen to make sure that I've got this shot in frame and in focus. All in all, it's really pleasant and punchy performance, and I haven't thrown a game at this thing yet that really made it struggle. Of course, I'm not a huge mobile gamer, but those of you looking for a power user device in the Android space that can handle almost console quality gaming, the Note 4 is definitely near the top of that list. The Samsung camera is phenomenal. It's a nice wide shooter, and it's a native 16 megapixel 16:9 image. Let me turn off HDR, and then we can get into some quick settings. We do have filters here if you want to go directly into making something faded, grayscale, sepia, turquoise, cartoon. You can do a fisheye lens view here. It just sort of warps the frame and turns it into sort of a circular look as I move this thing here through the rear. It just kind of distorts the whole frame. It's a lot of fun to play with. And you've got a ton of different filters to play with, plus the ability to download more directly from the Samsung App Store. And we've got quick settings down here for the flash and for a timer. So if you want to set the camera up, hit the timer and then run around to the other side so you can take a group shot. It's a very easy process on the Note 4's new camera app. And for those of us who want to get into even more control over our photos and videos, we have the expanded menu of settings and options. We've got exposure control, which I leave as a quick setting here on the side that helps you brighten or darken the scene. It tells the camera what it should be focusing on. We have ISO controls, white balance controls, metering modes. I tend to leave mine in spot metering, so it'll take its exposure cue from wherever I tap on the screen. We have a decent HDR setting. I find that Samsung cameras tend to oversaturate and overexpose slightly anyway, and the HDR in some instances can actually exacerbate some of those issues. We can turn on tap to take pics. Let me tap on that there. And then wherever we focus, it'll automatically take a picture on that focus point. And we also have our video sizes. So the Note 4 shoots a really high quality 1080p video, and I've already produced a video test in UHD, but I'm also kind of happy to see that they've got a setting for 2560 by 1440. You can shoot video at the native resolution of the Note 4's screen. Higher than 1080p, takes up a little less space than UHD. In recording mode, we have different settings for video. If we want to do smooth motion video, we want to do fast. This is sort of turning your video into more of a time-lapse style video. And then slow motion in varying degrees, if I tap on that right there, all the way down to 1/8 speed, which is 240 frames per second. This, of course, drops your resolution down to 720p, just like on the iPhone. But as the iPhone made a big deal out of 240 frames per second slow motion, the Note 4 is following in their footsteps and providing the same speed ramp for slowing down content while shooting video. And here we have video stabilization. And this is something that's been a little misunderstood on some of the other Note 4 videos that I've seen. When we come in and shoot video at UHD, it disables video stabilization. But one, I thought the Note 4 had hardware optical image stabilization, and it does. If you watch our Note 4 camera review, you'll see that the footage is actually pretty well smoothed out, especially if you compare it to video shot off of the Alpha or Galaxy S5, which do not have hardware optical image stabilization. The video stabilization that we're employing here is software electronic image stabilization, which is only available at lower resolution video at 1080p. And what this does is it crops in the frame on your video to provide both hardware and software image stabilization, very similar to what the iPhone 6 Plus does. And if you notice, there no longer is a separate setting for software image stabilization for shooting stills. Now when you just take a picture with the Note, you no longer have that super long scanning mode. It automatically goes into a nighttime photography mode, but the hardware image stabilization takes a huge chunk out of the amount of time that the Galaxy S5 would sit there and scan through the scene. We've got the ability to geotag our photos and videos. We've got volume key control, depending on what you want to use the volume key for. It can take pictures, record video, or you can use the rocker as a zoom for the fantastic 8x digital zoom built into this camera. We have shutter sound control, voice control actions. If you want to say cheese and have it take a photo, that's how you enable it right there. The ability to turn on and off grid lines. I do like having my rule of third lines up there. It does seem to help me compose better shots. The ability to review photos and videos after we shoot them. I usually leave that off because I don't want anything lagging my camera. I want to get right back into taking another shot. And of course our storage location options. And as I have a really fast memory card in the Note 4, I usually leave that set to my memory card, and I leave the 32 gigabytes of storage built into the Note 4 free for all of my apps. And just so we can see stills performance, if I tap on this little ship in a bottle here and hold down the camera button, yeah, the burst mode on Samsung phones still doesn't approach the fluidity of the burst mode on the iPhone 6. But whereas the iPhone is stuck at just under 8 megapixel stills, this is shooting 16 megapixel stills. So the fact that it can knock out 30 shots that quickly, save them to a memory card, not even the built-in storage, it's still pretty decent performance, though I do wish that that burst mode had a smoother interface or a smoother action to get you into shooting that many stills. Well, folks, here we are at the end of the review. And what do I think of the Galaxy Note 4? We definitely continue to see a few of those Samsung quirks that I don't necessarily love. That being said though, the Note represents an uncompromising data-driven device. I really do think that Samsung is looking at the Note as their crown jewel device and not the Galaxy S5. And as such, I really do think that Samsung still has the best grip on what it is that draws us to a larger screened experience. It's not just a blown up Galaxy S5, this is a different beast. And it's definitely the showcase for all of their bleeding edge technologies. Now that Samsung has addressed some of the build quality issues that I've had with some of their previous phones, and they've included some incredible improvements to things like camera performance, it really pains me to say this, but the Note 4 is shaping up to be my favorite Android phone of the year. And if you've watched my channel at all, I am not the biggest fan of phablets. So for a larger screened phone to win me over, the guts of this phone have been consistently impressive. Of course, having the best camera hardware software experience on any Android phone that I've ever used in the past certainly doesn't hurt, as I'm something of a smartphone camera snob. But of course, I want to hear from you folks, especially for those of you who are fans of the larger screened experiences, as I'm not the biggest fan of phablets. What have your experiences been? A number of you have already been leaving me comments about the Galaxy Note 4 as you've been playing with them for a while. Definitely drop me comments down below because I love the conversations that we get into. As always, folks, thanks so much for watching my videos, subscribing to my channel, and I would not be able to continue producing reviews like these if you all weren't out there sharing my videos with family, friends, and on social media. Hit that thumbs up button, and I will catch you all on the next review.